And good evening once again, everybody. Welcome to another Hoops HD Championship Week video notebook and very shortened version of our bracket racket tonight. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. With me, first of all, is David Griggs. David, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. So we're going to do this, a 5-minute bracket racket. Can this be
Yes.
done? Is Lee
Well,
Del
well,
Vecchio on the show?
and exactly what I want to say is that one person who's not joining us is Lee Del Vecchio. Therefore, we can pull it off in 5 minutes. So start your clocks right now. Uh, What we want to do is very quickly just review some of the news and notes about that have been going on in college basketball. And at the very top of the list here, Kentucky does finish the regular season 31-0, undefeated.
This is
Wichita State did it last year. I think before that, the last team was Vegas, was it not?
St. Joe's did it in 2004. They lost in the
Correct.
quarters of the conference tournament, but
Correct.
huge accomplishment for Kentucky. The first time a team has run the table in the regular season since I have this right here. 2014. It was the last time it was done. Yes.
Yeah, they have a chance to be entering the tournament at 34-0. Three more games to go in the SEC tournament, so let's see what happens this coming up week. Another bit of news this week. Apparently, Duke and North Carolina played again. If you hadn't noticed, ESPN made a little bit of a big deal about this game. And we found out a very fascinating fact during this game. David, can you fill everyone in?
Yes, two things. Two things actually. The schools are still 8 miles apart. They haven't moved. They mentioned that countless times, and it still, even since the last time they played earlier this year, they still have never met in the NCAA tournament.
Really?
Yes,
Never?
Not once. No.
Wow, it didn't happen in the last month. It didn't happen that they met.
No, I mean you would think that it would have, but it hasn't. Really, Duke is clearly the superior team. North Carolina is good. Duke is really good, and it was never really a game. I think Duke had an easier time this time.
Yeah. While we're in the ACC, the other big news was Virginia went and did lose the regular season finale at Louisville. Huge game two ways. First of all, I think this puts Virginia and Duke very close to one another in terms of profiles when it comes to the number one seed line.
Yes, it certainly does. That's a good point, Chad. Virginia is higher in Virginia is higher in the standings, but here's the thing: the schedule is not balanced. The two only played once, and Duke won at Virginia. If they were to play again, one could reason that Duke would win, and the two would be tied in the standings. So the one game separating them, to me, it's a non-issue. I think if one of them wins the conference tournament, they'll leapfrog the other in the standings and get seeded in the East.
Yeah, that's the big difference. Which team is going to be playing in Syracuse and which team is going to be playing in Houston in terms of their regions.
Yes, and Syracuse, obviously Duke wants to be in that area because that's where it's located. New Jersey, Durham, I think is the name of the school.
Yeah, not that far from Jersey to Syracuse. So
yeah.
Yeah, and also that was also a huge win for Louisville, who we were trying to figure out whether they were able to start winning again. Obviously, they answered that question big time, I think.
Big time because, I mean, it's a big win on their profile, but more importantly, it's a big win on their profile without Chris Jones, which completely changes how it's going to be evaluated. It was a really big win for Louisville.
Exactly. A couple other quick news and notes here. VCU did not even get the bye in the Atlantic 10 tournament. Finished in 5th place. They're going to have to play the number 12 seed in the what's actually the second round. There is a play-in first round before that, but they didn't get a top 4 seed in the A10.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, I realize that on the team page the conference standings are not on, or they are, but finishing 5th in the conference, I think the committee is going to frown upon that. How do they react to that? Their profile's pretty good. I still think outside of being in 5th place, they're still the strongest profile, but since the injury, they have not been the same. And what do? Davidson finishing first is right on the bubble. They're many games in front of VCU.
And we gotta say, congratulations to Davidson, entering the A10 and finishing outright first place in a conference that I doubted them all year. I called them bad Davidson, and I mean, if they lose their quarterfinal game, they may have to sweat things out on Selection Sunday. If they get one more win, I think they're in it solidly.
I agree. So again, good for them. First year, they were picked to finish at the bottom, and it just goes to show you we didn't think they'd finish at the bottom, but you and I had been watching. We knew that this was at least a formidable Davidson team. I don't think we knew that they would win the league. That's pretty incredible.
Another team that was a surprise #1 seed in its conference tournament is Boise State. Finished tied first place with San Diego State, but swept them in the regular season. Wins the tiebreaker. It kind of came out of nowhere. They were down in the standings most of the year and came on really strong late.
They really did. They were a team we were kind of big on back in November, December. I think we both noticed them the first weekend when they won some what we thought were going to be pretty impressive neutral floor games. As it turns out, they really weren't. But they won some impressive games after that. So, yeah, kind of surprised them getting the overall #1. And where are they in relation to the bubble? Are they inside of it, outside of it? I mean, I had them a little up on my seed list. I realize that's not unanimous on our community, but...
Yeah, I feel at the moment that they are there. Again, they lose their quarterfinal. They may be sweating things out. I think they get one win. Well, honestly, they'll need two because the other two tournament caliber teams, being San Diego State and Colorado State, are both on the other side of the bracket. On the other hand, they're going to have an easier road on their side of the bracket to the Mountain West Championship game.
Right.
One other piece of news, David, as we turn over towards the tournaments. When we ended the night last night, we had, I believe, 238 teams remaining on our survival board. We did have two teams fall off after we went off the air. The first one was Santa Clara, who lost that late game in the West Coast Conference. The other team that came off of the board last night was Arkansas Pine Bluff. And this is a little bit of breaking news from back in November that nobody knew about, and I mean nobody, not us. Nobody knew about this.
No. Apparently, is this self-imposed or was it NCAA ban?
No. Arkansas Pine Bluff was being investigated by the NCAA for various infractions related to playing ineligible players across multiple sports. So we're talking about well over 100 players that were deemed to have been ineligible when they played games. The penalty originally came down as a 2-year postseason ban. They had appealed it. Back in November, the ruling came out. They dropped it down to a 1-year postseason ban, and I think it was football, men's basketball, women's basketball, a whole multitude of sports. And that is why we had this great mystery surrounding why the SWAC was only saying there were going to be 9 teams in Houston for their tournament. Arkansas Pine Bluff is not going.
100 ineligible players.
Yes, it was
100. Oh my God! I mean. How people lose their jobs when they make a mistake and improperly certify 1 or 2 players. This is 98 more than that.
Yeah, it's like they just let everybody play and didn't bother double checking any of them. If the report is out there on the NCAA website, you can read it if you want. Just at ncaa.com, you have to do a little bit of searching, which is actually took me quite a lot of searching to find the report this morning. We did find it though. And the SWAC confirmed that it was because of these sanctions that Arkansas Pine Bluff was not going to be participating in Houston. The good news out of all this is for Grambling State, they do have one more game left to try to avoid the Centenary Award.
Yes, and that will be awarded before we begin on Thursday.
Yeah, the Grambling will be playing Tuesday night. Assuming they lose that game, they will be winning the Centenary Award. So we'll see. We'll update you that on Tuesday night.
Okay.
On that note, we're going to go right into the brackets here, and all the action that happened today, and as well as the action coming up tomorrow. And the first game we're going to have up was one of the most exciting games and one of the best court stormings you'll ever see. North Florida.
Yeah.
Congratulations. The Ospreys making their first ever NCAA tournament in front of a crowd that was just absolutely insane.
It was bonkers in there. It was so intense that I think it kind of threw North Florida a little bit, even though it was their own fans. I mean, if you notice that they kind of came out between the start of the game. I think the score at the under 16 timeout was 2-2, and it was just missed shot, sloppy play. They had to get the nerves worked out, running up and down the floor a couple times. But it really was an exciting game. And, we mentioned North Florida being a recent transitional team. Upstate was as well. Both these programs have done extremely well, as has Florida Gulf Coast, since transitioning up in the last 10 years. just a really good game. It was a back and forth game. For a time, it looked like I think North Florida had a 10 or a 12-point lead at the half. Upstate came roaring out. I mean, to be down on the road in that environment against the best team in the conference and come back and actually get a lead, really gutsy, hard effort. I mean, just the effort in this game was incredible on both sides. And I know that's not much of a consolation now to Upstate, but I also wanted to mention how well I thought they played.
They did. They've been really good at several years now. Unfortunately, they have not broken through in the conference tournament yet. We'll see what happens. But they really have built a good program there. There was 4 programs that all came into the Atlantic Sun within about a 2-year time period. This North Florida, Upstate, Gulf Coast, and Kennesaw State was the 4th. Unfortunately, things have not gone quite as well at Kennesaw as with the other 3.
Yeah. But anyway, just a great game. This conference, it's again undergoing Kennesaw, the program you just mentioned, I believe is leaving for the Big South next year. This is their last year in the league. They're leaving for football reasons. I believe that's right.
I had not heard that, but if you say so,
it's either next year or this year. Well, okay, I don't want to give bad information. I know they're leaving for the Big South. They're instituting football. Next year is their first season. I don't know if they're joining the Big South right away, if it's going to be their second year. So their membership is going to be dwindling. There is a team in your neck of the woods that needs a place to play if they want an 8th member, which I think they pretty much need.
There's a team in your neck of the woods that may need a conference as well, David. So
yes.
Let's move over to the Missouri Valley Conference. And this was a game. Illinois State came out flying here in this first half, built up a huge lead. It looked like they were going to run away and just crush Northern Iowa and take this automatic bid, steal it. And then the second half started.
Yeah, I think it was 33-15. And in Northern Iowa, they weren't hitting their shots. A lot of that was due to Illinois State's defense, but a lot of it was, I think Northern Iowa came in overconfident. It was a big part of it. And I think sometimes when you know you're in, you don't play as hard as a team that's really, really gunning for you. But I was impressed. Illinois State appeared to be way, way, way overmatched by any stretch of the imagination, and they came out swinging. And even in the second half, as you mentioned, I think it was a 32-7 run, which got Northern Iowa the lead back. But Illinois State kept fighting. I mean, right up until the under 4 timeout, they were right in this game.
Yeah, but in the end, everybody that is on the bubble does breathe a sigh of relief that a bid was not stolen here in the Missouri Valley. Obviously, Northern Iowa is in now. Wichita State will be in as well. Illinois State, maybe the NIT waits for them.
I think they definitely deserve it. They won 20 games. They had a big win over a ranked team on a neutral floor. Not a whole lot of bad losses. I really hope the NIT invites them. They deserve it.
Beginning of the season and throughout our Under the Radar podcast, we talked a lot about the Big South and about the parity in the conference and 7 teams that just a few weeks ago were tied for first, and how none of it mattered because Coastal Carolina was hosting the conference tournament and would win it.
And we were right.
We were right.
Yeah.
I really hate that they do this that they don't do this on campus sites. That they let Coastal Carolina host. They've hosted for 3 straight years, and they've won 2 out of those 3. I think that says a lot.
Yeah, it does. Now, again, they've had good teams. I don't want to take away from Coastal Carolina too much. And as you pointed out, they would have hosted the quarters. They would have hosted the semis. Well, maybe not. I mean, High Point gets to play Gardner-Webb at home. Maybe they advance instead. But it's a bus league, all the teams being in North Carolina, South Carolina, or Virginia. There's no reason they couldn't do campus sites. They used to do campus sites, and I think it worked better. But still, Coastal Carolina, good year. They certainly dominated the game today. Winthrop hit. It was they fell behind early, came back, hit an unbelievable shot at the buzzer going into the half to tie the game at 38, but then Coastal just opened it up in the second half.
Yeah, so congratulations, Coastal Carolina, Northern Iowa, and North Florida all joining Belmont as the 4 teams that have locked up bids to the NCAA tournament. Let's move on to some conferences that were in the semifinal round today, and I think it was probably the game of the day here happened in the Colonial in the first
Oh,
semifinal. This William and
fantastic
Mary
game.
versus Hofstra game was just an absolutely great game. Double overtime, back and forth. Each team, every time either team started to make a run to pull it away, the other one came storming back. Threes being rained down in this game.
Yeah. I think it's been the most exciting game of championship week so far. Um, and it really was. And you get the sense, had the game, there were 3 lead changes in the last 15 seconds, I think.
Yeah.
And we saw that, and it was similar. It was like that at the end of regulation. It was back and forth, back and forth. The whole 55 minutes of play, or I'm sorry, 50 minutes of play, it was back and forth. And had they played for another hour, I don't think anybody would have built a lead larger than 4. It was an incredible game. And just when you thought a team had opened up a lead and was and had momentum, the other team came back. It was one of the most exciting, well-played effort games I have seen all season, much less during championship week. It was a great game.
A great game, and William and Mary, who did find a way to win. They will be back, and they will be in the championship game. This is coming up tomorrow night. They'll be playing Northeastern, who got by UNC Wilmington in another pretty good game in the other half of the semifinals there. William and Mary going for that first ever NCAA tournament bid and to try to get off of that list of 5 teams here tomorrow night.
Yeah, and again, they were right here last year. I don't recall if it went into overtime or not, but I do know it came down to the final seconds. In their loss last year, was it to Delaware? Or
Yes, it was to Delaware last year.
And it was a great game last year. So.
And this Northeastern team has been in the tournament since the 90s, or well over 20 years. So somebody will, if they do win, this will be their first time in quite a while as well.
Yeah, good stuff in Baltimore.
We also had the semifinals tonight in the Metro Atlantic, where Iona absolutely cruised over Monmouth, pretty much crushed them here.
And look at who are they going to be playing tomorrow?
The matchup that we were hoping for, although we didn't expect it would actually happen. Yes, the two top rivals in the Metro Atlantic, Iona and Manhattan, going up to Albany to play a neutral court game for the right to go to the NCAA tournament. This is probably going to be the game of the night tomorrow night.
It really is. And Chad, I do have a request. I think you can do this since you can seemingly do everything else. Can we move this game to Madison Square Garden? Can we do that?
I'm going to have to work on that. We're going to have to contact the Knicks. I don't know if they have a home game tomorrow night or not. That could be the only.
What's the name of what about the Barclays Center? I mean, it's right in Brooklyn. Let's move it to the Barclays Center.
All right. Well, we'll work on it. If you're planning to go to this game tomorrow up in Albany, you may want to try to arrive about 2 or 3 hours early in case there's a little note taped to the door saying the game is moved. It'll probably just be a little handwritten note with a piece of tape, but we'll let it know.
I realize, and again, one of the reasons you love campus sites is, could you imagine this game at a campus site with the 2/3, 1/3 rule that the Patriot League has, where it's essentially a third of the fans would be met? Oh, it would be incredible. It would be good enough if we could just get it to New York City. It's not going to happen, but the game today, they were making the announcement the students are heading that way, so hopefully we get a really good atmosphere. In Massachusetts, they've played, this is the 3rd year in a row, but it was kind of a shame because you just could not get any semblance of an atmosphere for this game, even though it is a rivalry game. There should be one tomorrow, though.
Still probably only a little bit further to Springfield than it is to Albany from there, but hopefully the fans will all get up there, up to Albany, and
I'm just geographically ignorant, I guess. So.
And turn out for this game. Let's move over to the Southern Conference, where we had the upset-minded Furman Paladins, number 10 seed in the conference. The streak continues. I don't know what to say here at this point. You come in dead last in the conference. You knock off the 7 seed, okay. The 2 seed, well, maybe. Now they took down the 3 seed Mercer in a game that they were down a lot of this game, made a huge comeback in the second half, and found a way to pull it out in the end.
Yeah, and Mercer needs to work on their free throws, as does Furman. And you had mentioned, and I did not realize this, but the last game of the year, Furman hosted Walford and only lost by 2. I didn't watch it. I'm not going to sit here and try and sound smart after the fact, but I was kind of following the score thinking, My God, what is wrong with Wofford? Could it be that Furman has just somehow found a way to kick it into gear, or was everybody just kind of asleep at the wheel?
Well, they had lost 8 out of 9 heading into the conference tournament. They had not won more than 2 games in a row all season, so they were already on their longest winning streak of the season with these 3 straight in the conference tournament. Uh, I really don't know what's going on here, but given that that was a 2-point game just a week ago and at Furman, uh, you never know tomorrow. Maybe they take down Wofford as well and go to the NCAA tournament.
A little trivia here: if Furman were to win this, where would they rank on what is their record? I believe it's 10-18 or something. What is it? Do you have that information?
Yeah, I will get that information in just half a second here. Their overall record right now is 11-21, so they would be 12-21 heading in. There have been teams at 10 and 11 wins before, but 21 losses maybe
I was going to
up
say
there for the most.
Yeah, I want to say, and I could be wrong. I better not say it. Oh, we're not professionals. I want to say that Oakland in '05 is the only team that's made the tournament with 20 losses. I could be incorrect about that. Yeah. Where's Kyle? He's our NCAA trivia guru. But is that correct?
That might be correct. I know that Oakland team did have 20 losses. I'm not sure if there were any others or not, but 21 losses might be the record. And we'll double check that tomorrow before we come on the air. If Furman does win this game.
Yeah,
of course, it'll be all over the TVs tomorrow. Also,
right.
So.
In all seriousness, nothing against Furman. If they beat Wofford and they get a second horrendous loss on their profile, I don't think the committee will take them. This is a really good Wofford team that deserves to be in the NCAA tournament. Everyone's up in arms about Murray State. We covered that last night. This Wofford team is better. I almost think, as exciting as it is, and as much as we like upsets, I think that would be a real shame if Wofford did not get in.
And you're absolutely right. We were talking about throughout these podcasts about the Southern Conference and Wofford, and our thoughts that Wofford would seriously be on the bubble if they lost in the finals. But we were assuming they were losing to Mercer or Chattanooga there, which is not a good loss, but not a horrendous loss. A loss to Furman.
Yeah.
Furman, as of the moment, their RPI is sitting at 297, so it would at least be a top 300 loss, but that's about the best you can say about it.
Yeah.
The Citadel loss would still be worse. That's all I can say. That's the only other thing.
Wow.
We also had semifinals today in the Patriot League. Now, the reason that you finish higher in the standings so you can get home court and so you can get a chance to play at home and win at home, which is exactly what did not happen in the Patriot League today. Both road teams pulling off the upsets.
Yeah, the Lafayette Bucknell game was back and forth. It was kind of a fun game to watch. American U just blasted Colgate. I know the final margin was 11, but they actually won a lot more comfortably than that. American looks so good. I know that they have to go to Lafayette. I still think they're going to beat them. American's kind of been disappointing all season, but not in this tournament.
Right, and this championship game is not going to be coming up until Wednesday night here, again, in Lafayette. I don't think Lafayette has hosted the championship game for about 15 years in the Patriot League, so congratulations to them. Obviously, they didn't expect it coming in as the 4 seed, but there you go.
Right.
We also had semifinals today, kicking off the day early on in the America East.
What a day!
A couple of really just great games here in the America East. Let's start with this with the bottom game there. Vermont Stony Brook. Vermont came out on fire here. I think they were 12-0. They were dominating in the first half. Much like the Northern Iowa-Illinois State game, things completely changed in the second half.
Yeah, they really were. And you want to talk about another bonkers crowd. I mean, Vermont at home, up big, in front of a crowd that was absolutely ridiculous. Somehow, I don't know how, and this is a team on top of all that had been playing very well down the stretch. Somehow, I don't know how, Stony Brook fought their way back. It was nip and tuck the whole way. Sort of a bizarre ending. I don't know if you saw it, but Vermont had the ball. They were down 2, I think, and they went. What? No. They had scored. That's what happened. They had hit free throws to cut it to 2, and so anyway, Stony Brook got the rebound, was trying to call timeout. Vermont actually forced a tie-up, which was a jump ball. They had possession. So they actually had the ball with about 2 seconds to go and a chance to win. And they got a shot up that didn't go in, but just crazy. I think they were either down 4 or down 3, and it was just a way where I think they missed a free throw on purpose. And Vermont got the rebound, or I'm sorry, Stony Brook got the rebound, but Vermont forced a tie-up. Just a really crazy ending.
Yeah, it was, and it was. We really thought for a moment that we were going to have Vermont versus New Hampshire in the finals. It turned out to be the exact opposite. This Albany-New Hampshire game was close the entire way, though.
Yeah.
New Hampshire was right there, had their chances in this game. Could not quite pull it out in the end, though. But still, probably the best season of New Hampshire basketball that I can remember.
Yeah, I can too, and I mean, I know it's gut wrenching, and it hurts when your season ends, no matter when it ends. But still, just one of the best seasons in many, many years. It's the best one I can ever remember, and they were right in there. And had New Hampshire won, who knows? Going into Stony Brook, it was close.
Now, this championship game, Stony Brook will be at Albany. It's not going to be coming up until Saturday morning at 11 a.m. So it's going to be a while till we talk about America East again. But just quickly, David, who do you think wins the game?
I got to stick with Albany. It was kind of funny because at the time when it looked like Vermont was going to win, Vermont kind of got robbed last year. So how fitting would it have been had they either gotten to play Albany again or gotten the host like they should have gotten to last year? But Albany, they've been number one all the way through. I think they get it done.
I agree with you there. But I believe Stony Brook did win in Albany late in the season, so it's not going to be an easy game by any means.
Mm-hmm.
The Summit League played its second 2 quarterfinals tonight. South Dakota State and North Dakota State had already won the day before.
Yeah, and this is a fun semifinal. We got South Dakota State, and then Oral Roberts, who really had to sweat out, which was a pretty pathetic IUPUI team. I didn't think that game would be close, but it was. It came down to really the final play.
Yeah, that game was close all the way. Oral Roberts did pull it out, giving us a pair of great look at semifinals. Not only the Battle of South Dakota won, but the North Dakota State Oral Roberts game in the
Yeah.
I mean, both these games are coming up tomorrow night. Who do you like?
I like South Dakota State. I just love how they've been playing. I realize it's a rivalry of somewhat, and you got to take that into account. But South Dakota State versus South Dakota in South Dakota, that's going to be a fun game. I think South Dakota State gets it done, and I think they get it done on Tuesday as well.
Yeah, as far as Oral Roberts go, they actually lost one of their top players to a season-ending suspension right prior to the Summit League tournament, so that may have explained the close game here with IUPUI and why I don't think they're going to have a shot with North Dakota State tomorrow. I think we're going to end up with South Dakota State, North Dakota State.
And, man, that's a fun game. It's always fun when those two play.
We have a few other games coming up tomorrow. That completes the games that were played today, but a few other games coming up tomorrow night we want to take a look at. First of all, West Coast Conference, which took the day off today because BYU does not play on Sundays, as every bracketologist knows very well. We've got the semifinals coming up, though. BYU Portland and Pepperdine Gonzaga. David, do you sense either one of these teams getting upset tomorrow?
I don't. Now, this is what's interesting. BYU is right on our bubble, and I don't know if the committee is doing what we're doing or not. They need to be doing what we're doing, but you kind of figured had they gotten a couple notable wins in this and avoided bad losses, they'd be all right. I don't think Portland moves them up 1 centimeter.
Right. I heard the announcer saying, "Wow, BYU lucked out that they don't have to play St. Mary's." I think they did not luck. I think they would have been better off playing St. Mary's because it gives them that notable win.
Yeah, and again, St. Mary's not a tournament team, but at least they're somewhat formidable, and it would have been some decent eye candy to beat St. Mary's on a neutral court. Portland it's a winnable game. They'll be facing Gonzaga. Maybe they're in, maybe they're not, but again, they really needed to do something to improve their profile. And if this was not a conference game, we would be calling this a bye game.
Yeah, I mean, if BYU really wants to get lucky in this tournament, then Pepperdine will knock off Gonzaga for them and they'll win the whole thing. But that's
right, yeah.
That would be the luck that BYU is going to be looking for at this point, and I don't think that happens. two more conferences that will kick off action tomorrow night. We have not spoke about either of these conferences yet on our video notebooks. Let's start with the Mid-American Conference, which may not even fit on the entire screen here, this crazy format that they've got.
Yes, they are just groundbreaking all the way through. But
You can at least see tomorrow's 4 games there. These are the 4 first-round games that will be played on campus sites before everybody heads to Cleveland for the rest of the tournament. Ball State at Bowling Green, Miami, Ohio is at Eastern Michigan, Ohio U's at Western Michigan, and Northern Illinois is at Akron.
and what's crazy about this format is, I'm sorry, Ball State right there. They were a game away from getting a double bye, or a triple bye, I guess it was.
Bowling Green.
Or I'm sorry, Bowling Green. Yes.
Yeah,
Ball State was a little more than a game.
Slightly,
a few more than that, but yeah.
But Bowling Green's final game of the season against Buffalo came down to the very buzzer, the very end of the game. It was a great game, back and forth. Buffalo pulled it out. If Bowling Green had won it, they would have been the number 1 seed there, where Central Michigan is. Instead, they have to play 5 games rather than 2. Almost making you think that this is too much of a ladder format when you have a conference this close.
Right.
But who do you like to win this conference tournament? I mean, with this format here, Toledo and Kent getting the double buys, Central Michigan and Buffalo getting the triple buys.
It's almost impossible to say. There's so much parity. There's so much rivalry in this conference. I like the way Kent's been playing. Central Michigan, I really like how they've been playing. I mean, this is not an easy conference to run away from, and they sort of did it, but they did it kind of not so much against a backloaded schedule. I think I'm going. I think I'm going to have to go with Central Michigan, though.
I'm going to go with Buffalo, the number 2 seed there on the other side. I think that they have an easier shot with Kent rather than Central Michigan, who's got to play the winner of probably a Toledo Bowling Green game, and Buffalo has been playing well. They just came off that big win over Bowling Green, so that's my pick in this conference.
Yeah, they really have. And is it Bobby Hurley or Danny Hurley? I get them confused. The coach.
That is Bobby Hurley in Buffalo, and just as note, Buffalo has never been in an NCAA tournament before.
Right.
This conference that has not been.
Yeah, just a quick note on them. They really have had a good year. When you look at their NCAA tournament profile, and there's certain things on a profile that kind of jump out at you. Nothing at all jumps out at you about Buffalo except one thing. And boy, does it jump out at you.
Yeah, normally when you're talking the bubble, you're talking about anybody in about the mid-40s and better in terms of RPI. Buffalo's RPI, as of right now, here's an update, is up to 30, number 30 in the country. That would tell you that this is absolutely a bubble team, and they're not.
No. And again, I mean, most teams that get RPIs into the 30s, and I realize this is categorical, a lot of them aren't even bubble teams. They're just way inside the bubble. There's teams behind them that are going to be on our first ballot tomorrow.
I'll tell you, I mean, you got a couple of factors here that did it. First of all, they played 5 more road games than home games. Second of all, they played at Wisconsin and at Kentucky. And third, if you look at that opponent's record component, you had a ton of really good overall records. Not great overall records, but good overall records here in the MAC. You've got 7 teams that finished with 8 teams that finished with 18 or more wins in the MAC this season out of 12. So I think those are the factors that pushed Buffalo's RPI up to the completely fraudulent position that it's in.
And I don't think the committee will be impressed by it, but at the very least, you have to stop and look when a team's RPI is that good.
One last conference we want to get to, David. We have the first round, 2 of the first round games in the MEAC tomorrow night. There's actually 4 first round games. The 2 first round games being played tomorrow night are the 8-9 game between Bethune-Cookman and Coppin State, and the 7-10 game between North Carolina A&T and the team, the number 1 team, the team that is going to win it all, my South Carolina State Bulldogs.
Yes, I forgot. Yeah, I've forgotten that this is your team. So I hadn't forgotten. I just didn't realize they were playing tomorrow. But they should be able to beat North Carolina A&T. I don't know. It's going to get harder after that. But let's hope that they get to live another day, literally, because they may not get to once they're done.
Yeah, this North Carolina A&T team is one of the two teams that lost to Florida A&M this year. So I really think that South Carolina State does pull this game out. Just a quick note about watching this tournament. They did cut a deal with ESPN this year. The entire tournament will be on ESPN3 with the championship game televised on ESPN2. So you can watch it with good streaming as opposed to the very, very mediocre streaming that they had in past years. In terms of this conference overall, North Carolina Central went undefeated in conference play. David, is anybody going to be able to knock them off?
I think South Carolina State can.
Besides South Carolina State?
Oh, besides them? No, I don't think so.
The one team I would watch out for here is this Maryland Eastern Shore team. This has been Bobby Collins came in there and has done an amazing job turning this team around.
Yeah, he really has. Great. Well, I'll let you tell it, but it is a great story.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Maryland Eastern Shore team that we normally would be playing in the first round and wearing dark jerseys every year in the MEAC, and he came in there this year and just has absolutely been one of the most impressive first-year coaches first year with his program coaches anywhere in the country this year, I think.
Yeah, he really has. It's just been an incredible turnaround. Great job by him. One of those guys that will never be considered for Coach of the Year because it's too far under the radar, but has done one of the best coaching jobs of the year.
So that's it for tomorrow's games. Why don't we pull this down here and we'll move over to our survival board.
Okay, survival board. Let me see here.
And Dave, we're going to pull that up on your screen here, and of course, since we have such good theater here.
It's just, taking a second. Okay, let's see. This is again hard to do with no arms. Sure. And let me see. Do we have life here?
Yes. If we want to just scroll it down a little bit, there we go.
There's the survival board. Here we go. Oh, there's 236. It's been adjusted.
We're at 236. We'd been at 238 after last night. I think I may have quoted those numbers wrong at the top of the show. It was down to 236 with the removal of Pine Bluff and the removal of Santa Clara.
And just again, like for people that I see, Wichita State there is in bold, even though they didn't win the. What does that mean? That Wichita State's.
That means that Wichita State is going to be in the NCAA tournament, and when the selection committee, who uses this as one of their primary tools for
this document,
the team, very document.
Yeah, what you're seeing now, the selection committee uses, yes.
So any teams they see in bold, they know are in. They don't have to debate them. They just go in. The only question is going to be their seeding. Yes. Teams that are bold in caps, like you see Belmont there.
Yes, there's Belmont.
Bids, they've got to be included. Teams in italics are teams that they should discuss, think about, maybe they belong, maybe they don't.
Right, yes. And again, it's very important to not make a mistake, because if we were to not have Beaumont in bold, they might get left out even though they won the automatic bid. So we have to be very careful with that.
Right. And again, we were with the adjustments at 236. Let's go ahead and hit that magic button now, and we'll see what our new number is at here.
Okay, here it is, and it is 225.
225. Only lost 11 teams tonight, not as many as in prior nights.
Yeah. So, but okay, so that's the survival board.
I'm sorry, we lost 15 teams. We should be
15 teams. So
we should. I think that there is a math error there. I think that should be 221. I'm gonna get that corrected.
Okay. Well, yeah, we want to get that corrected, because, like you said, it is what the selection committee looks at. I mean, if we don't get that corrected, it might be a 72-team field this year.
Yeah, we're going to we'll make that adjustment here. I think we're going to have to recheck our math here.
Okay.
So once again, we did really good here, messing up our math completely. But there is 222 teams left. That is the magic number.
Okay. And again, so just in this past week, I realized that most of the people think of championship week as beginning now. We have eliminated over 90 teams since Tuesday.
That is correct, but these teams are flying off the board.
Yeah.
And they will continue to keep flying here. A little bit slower days the next 2 days, but then once we get to Wednesday, they're going to be flying off again.
Yeah. And again, like, the notebook, we're going to start looking at bigger conferences. All of the tournaments are set. You can look at that on our conference tournament information page or conference tourney info tab at the top of the screen. It'll also be linked in this podcast, just in the post. So again, all the hay is in the barn. It's all set.
All right. Well, on that note, I want to wish everybody a great night, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks a lot.